As mist drifted over rice fields, mountains, and quiet villages, the figure of the samurai emerged in Japan not as a sudden invention, but as a gradual response to a world that demanded loyalty, discipline, and protection in landscapes shaped by power, nature, and tradition. Samurai developed during times when central authority weakened and local leaders needed skilled warriors who could defend land, enforce order, and navigate complex relationships built on trust rather than distant laws. These warriors were not merely fighters because their identity blended military skill with cultural expectation, moral behavior, and lifelong service to a lord whose favor shaped both honor and survival. From childhood, those born into samurai families were raised with clear expectations, learning that behavior mattered as much as strength, and that self-control defined true power more clearly than uncontrolled force. Training began early, mixing physical practice with mental discipline because sword skill without calm thought could bring disaster rather than victory. Archery, swordsmanship, horsemanship, and strategy formed the visible core of samurai preparation, while patience, observation, and restraint shaped its invisible foundation. Weapons carried meaning beyond function, with swords treated as symbols of identity, responsibility, and connection to lineage rather than simple tools. A samurai's sword represented trust placed in its owner, reminding everyone that skill and judgment were inseparable. Armor evolved to suit Japan's climate and fighting styles, balancing protection with flexibility so warriors could move efficiently across uneven terrain. Helmets and armor displayed personal and family symbols, allowing identity to remain visible even amid chaos. Samurai served daimyo, powerful regional lords who controlled land and resources, creating systems where loyalty replaced centralized rule. This loyalty bound warriors tightly to their lords, shaping decisions both in battle and daily life. In exchange, samurai received land, stipends, or status, tying survival directly to service rather than independent wealth. These arrangements formed a feudal structure adapted to Japan's geography and culture. Villages existed under samurai oversight, relying on protection while contributing taxes, labor, and respect. Samurai therefore interacted with farmers regularly, managing disputes and ensuring order. Despite their warrior status, many samurai understood agriculture's importance deeply because rice production defined economic stability. Seasonal rhythms shaped expectations for everyone, including warriors who trained while remaining aware of harvest cycles. The philosophy guiding samurai behavior became known as Bushido, a way of life emphasizing loyalty, courage, honor, and self-discipline. Bushido was not a fixed rulebook, but a shared understanding shaped by stories, example, and tradition. Honor mattered intensely because reputation determined trust and opportunity. Actions carried consequences beyond the individual, reflecting on family and lord alike. Samurai valued readiness over aggression, since battles were often decided before swords crossed. Planning, positioning, and timing shaped outcomes more than brute force. This awareness encouraged study of history, strategy, and human behavior. Literacy became important among samurai, setting them apart from warriors in many other cultures. They read philosophy, poetry, and historical records, balancing martial strength with intellectual growth. Writing poetry offered reflection and control, reminding warriors that sensitivity did not weaken resolve. Art, calligraphy, and tea ceremonies entered samurai life, offering structure and calm amid uncertainty. These practices trained focus and respect for detail. Samurai households followed strict routines, reinforcing discipline daily. Clothing signaled status clearly, marking social roles without explanation. Ceremony structured interactions, reducing conflict through shared expectations. Samurai wives managed households, finances, and education, holding responsibilities that demanded intelligence and resilience. They upheld honor during absence or loss, shaping family reputation. Children learned discipline through observation rather than indulgence. Stories of loyalty and sacrifice shaped imagination early. Training balanced firmness with expectation. Mistakes became lessons rather than excuses. Samurai justice reflected custom and authority, resolving conflicts through mediation or force depending on context. Mercy remained valued, though firmness remained expected. Punishment aimed to preserve order and respect. Warfare itself often involved ritualized elements, including banners, challenges, and signals. Battles reflected hierarchy as much as chaos. Samurai fought with awareness of audience, memory, and consequence. Victory brought obligation as much as reward. Defeat carried shame that affected generations. This seriousness shaped cautious decision-making. Periods of peace tested samurai relevance, pushing many toward administration, education, and governance. Roles expanded beyond combat. Samurai became judges, officials, and advisors. Castles in Japan grew as administrative centers rather than purely defensive fortresses. Life within these compounds blended military readiness with cultural refinement. Gardens, halls, and study spaces reflected order and balance. Silence held meaning equal to command. Nature influenced philosophy strongly, reminding warriors of impermanence. Earthquakes, storms, and seasons shaped humility. Zen Buddhism influenced samurai thought, emphasizing mindfulness and acceptance. Meditation trained awareness under pressure. Fear was acknowledged rather than denied. Death was considered honestly, reducing hesitation. Through these ideas, samurai prepared for uncertainty. They stood between chaos and stability. Their presence shaped Japan's political and cultural landscape deeply. As generations passed, the samurai became more than warriors, evolving into guardians of order, tradition, and identity, preparing a foundation for conflicts, transformations, and enduring stories that would continue shaping Japan long after swords left the battlefield. As time moved forward and conflicts shifted in scale and style, the lives of samurai continued to change, reflecting a world where their swords still mattered, but where governance, order, and reputation increasingly defined success beyond the battlefield. During long periods of peace, many samurai found themselves adjusting to quieter routines where patrols, paperwork, and ceremony replaced constant preparation for war, forcing warriors to redefine purpose without abandoning identity. This transition required discipline of a different kind because maintaining readiness without action-tested patience, humility, and self-control more deeply than active conflict ever could. Samurai households adapted carefully, turning training yards into places of practice rather than urgency, while study rooms and administrative spaces grew in importance. Education became even more central since reading law, philosophy, and history allowed samurai to serve effectively as officials rather than fighters alone. Their authority rested increasingly on judgment and fairness, not only on physical skill. Villages experienced samurai presence more often through governance than violence, encountering them as tax collectors, judges, and protectors of order. This daily interaction required restraint because abusing power damaged reputation and stability. A samurai's conduct, therefore, shaped trust across entire regions. Honor remained the guiding force, influencing how decisions were made under scrutiny. Mistakes carried social consequences that could last generations. Public behavior mattered as much as private intention. Samurai continued practicing martial skills even during peace, understanding that ability fades without use. Sword practice emphasized precision, control, and awareness rather than raw strength. Archery remained a discipline of focus and patience. Horse training reinforced partnership rather than domination. These practices reminded warriors of balance between control and force. Armor became lighter for ceremony than for battle, reflecting symbolic presence. Clothing styles refined status signals subtly. Rituals reinforced hierarchy while preventing conflict. Tea ceremonies gained greater importance, teaching calm attention and respect. Every movement held meaning, every silence communicated discipline. Poetry and calligraphy offered reflection on impermanence. Samurai wrote about nature, loss, loyalty, and passing time. Through art, they processed responsibility. Religion continued shaping worldview, blending Shinto, Buddhism, and Confucian ideas. Spiritual practice offered structure during uncertainty. Meditation trained the mind for pressure, acceptance of impermanence reduced fear. This philosophy affected leadership style, decisions balanced firmness with awareness of consequence. Samurai families preserved lineage carefully, recording names, deeds, and values. Children grew up surrounded by expectation rather than indulgence. They learned that privilege demanded effort, training continued across generations. Marriage strengthened alliances and stability. Women upheld family honor through management and resilience. Their influence remained essential. Samurai loyalty faced challenges during political shifts, testing adaptability. Changing alliances forced difficult choices. Some samurai lost status, becoming wanderers. Others rose through service and learning. Flexibility became survival skill. The ideal of Bushido evolved through storytelling rather than law. Legends emphasized loyalty and sacrifice. Reality remained more complex. Human ambition shaped outcomes. Over time, the arrival of new technologies and foreign influences challenged traditional warfare. Firearms altered battle strategies. Sword skill alone no longer guaranteed dominance. Samurai adapted gradually. Some resisted change. Others integrated new methods carefully. This tension shaped later history. Castles transformed further into administrative centers. Military readiness coexisted with bureaucracy. Records replaced battle cries. Authority relied on systems, yet symbols endured. The sword remained ceremonial. Honor still guided behavior. Samurai identity persisted even as roles shifted. When dramatic political change finally dissolved the samurai class, its values did not disappear. Principles of discipline, loyalty, and responsibility flowed into education, governance, and culture. Stories preserved memory where structures changed. Samurai became figures of history rather than daily presence. Their legacy continued shaping ideas of duty and self-control. Through centuries of adaptation, the samurai demonstrated that strength could transform without vanishing, proving that identity rooted in discipline and honor can endure long after swords are sheathed, guiding societies through change with memory, restraint, and purpose.